Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and I am coming to you today with the newest foodie book tag. This is foodie book tag number 31, and the theme to this book tag is herbs. This is the herb book tag, and I created all of these questions based and centered around different kinds of herbs. Uh, I saw that there was a kitchen garden book tag, and that was created by uh, Kai Roan. Uh, and I wanted to make sure that the prompts were different, even if some of the herbs were the same. And when I put the questions together, I realized they were very much different. But I had this in mind for quite some time. It was a nominee in quite a few polls to determine what would be the next foodie book tag. And I thought I would get around to doing it right now. This book here, Culinary Herbs and Spices of the World by Ben Erikman Wick, was inspiring as far as sorting out the different herbs is concerned. And I also was doing some research online to look up some herbs to best craft my questions, because I wanted to keep taste in mind, but also how it the scent of an herb, the sight of an herb, and different flavors and historical and culinary aspects were things I wanted to keep in mind when putting this tag together. So I have with me 16 different herbs and books to pair with them. And the first one is basil, a work with universal significance. For that, I went with Dandelion by Hermann Hesse. This is one of my favorite books of all time, and it does have Eastern reflections on Western culture, but when you meld them together, the result is a way of thinking that was with us all along, but it was just something we needed to discover within ourselves. And I think that the way of thinking that that Emil Sinclair went through, with the help of Max Demian, really enlightened him in a way that all of us can find as far as discovering ourselves and sometimes getting help from others in order to do so. Next is Dill, a character that serves as reason to strong, intense characters. Because even though dill pickles have a very strong, memorable, robust flavor, the dill actually is much more of a subtle aspect. It has a taste to it, but the garlic and the salt are more overwhelming when it comes to the major flavors within the dill pickle. But the character serving as reason to strong, intense characters is Dr. Pascal Rogan in the Rogan McCourt series. This here is the first, The Fortune of the Rogans. Dr. Pascal actually had his own book, and it was the very last book in this series, even though it suggested that, even though you can read it any which order, but there's a suggested order as well. This you should definitely read first, though. But Dr. Pascal, to me, really proved to be a very reasonable, individual that thought things through, at least as far as this book was concerned. And I sensed a bit of neurodivergence, that he could have been a neurodivergent character as well. Uh, but I do want to continue making my way through the McCourt, or the Rogan McCourt series. Next is Tarragon, a sweet moralistic piece. And for that, I went with One Art by Elizabeth Bishop. It was one of her very last poems that she wrote. She wrote it in the late 70s. She died in 1979 at the age of 68. And it's sweet in that bittersweet kind of way, where it starts out as being lighthearted and cozy, because it's about the art of losing, and it starts with losing things like your keys, but then it becomes heartbreaking, where it turns into people and loved ones speaking to you, the subject, and even incorporates visible emotion as far as how she's feeling and putting it to text. And the fact that this was written toward the end of her life and her career, and thus her career, makes it even more heart-wrenching. Next is Balm, an older but vibrant and energetic writer or character. And for that, I went with Prospero from The Tempest by William Shakespeare. Here is, right here. These are in order from, as to what we believe is the, when they were published, or when they came out. And The Tempest is often viewed as the very last, but it's, according to this, the second to last, with King Henry VIII being the very last. But this was also a play that also could have been viewed as Shakespeare's Goodbye, where Prospero is an aging, very eccentric, but in an old man kind of way, as a wizard, practicing magic. Our Revels Now Have Ended has been viewed as a concluding monologue. The very end, he walks away from magic, thus reflects the art of, the art of his craft, and thus reflecting the art of Shakespeare's craft as a playwright. But Prospero was very memorable, and in a way he was likable, even though he did make for some head-scratching moments. It was still, I think he still stuck out, and I think best reflects this question at hand, where he is older but also very vibrant and energetic. Next is Bay Leaf, the most important flavorless work you have read. And the one that sticks out to me is The Stranger by Albert Camus. This is very, I think a lot of people will dismiss this as being incredibly dry. It is an existential work, so a lot of it has to do with the exploration of one's thinking. And I personally felt that trying to delve into Marcel, not only it says a lot about the way that we think, because we as a society like to make judgments and jump to conclusions about people, whereas Marcel made very questionable decisions, but yet can we really judge him, especially on the basis of his actions rather than why he acted upon them. We're about what, when, and how rather than why. And I think that this really strengthens the argument regarding that. Next one is Catnip, an addictive work about one or more animals. And the one that I have in mind is the one that I still continue to think of, even though it's going to warrant a revisit at some point, and that is Dr. Rat by William Kotzwinkle. This, to me, is Animal Farm in the laboratory, where animals being used for experimentation are looking for their freedom, but Dr. Rat, the central character, is an ally to the cause of animal experimentation in order to advance humans' often selfish desires. It was just a very weird and outlandish work that could have gone in a very immoral direction, but yet it really speaks wonders, and it's quite memorable in the way of its structure and the way of its execution. Next one is Dandelion, a great book that you acquired from an unusual location. Dandelions are that you can find them just in the middle of a field. Many are dismissed as weeds, but yet they provide use. People do drink dandelion wine. But I'm going with The Cheese Plate by Max McCalman and David Gibbons. Photographs by Susan Salinger. What really sticks out to me about this is that this is the only thing I purchased when I was down in Disney World. A lot of people will get they'll get some shirts and clothing with Disney characters. A lot of people are into the pins. People like their little Disney-themed tchotchkes and whatnot. This is all I got, and this was at the French shop down in Epcot. It was a shop that had different things. It wasn't a bookstore, but it had this and a few other books. And I was reading this while I was down in Disney World as well, and I was really immersed. I think that it really extended my knowledge and really opened some doors as far as my knowledge on the subject of cheese is concerned, and the different things that we should be looking at as far as exploring every aspect of cheese is concerned. Next one is Lavender, an assertive female character that does not necessarily reflect a stereotypical tomboy. Lavender does play a major role in the herb garden as far as asserting its presence is concerned, but yet keeps what is viewed as what is called a cookie cutout feminine appearance based off of its color and scent. I'm going with Letty Hempstock and her female relatives in The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. Letty Hempstock played such a pivotal role in the speaker's life. The speaker was in a bind of a situation, went to the Hempstocks for shelter. It was 3 generations of female relatives who were able to stand on their own, but they didn't abandon what is considered what people view as stereotypical female traits. They were very... they provided him with shelter and some good food. He provided a recipe for the lemon pancakes that the Hemstock family put together. And Letty Hemstock also makes a very crucial decision that really makes a great impact on the speaker, the narrator's life. And I always was amazed and by how brilliant Ocean at the End of the Lane was. Next is Marjoram, a work of ancient literature that remains relevant to today. And for that, I'm going with Aesop's Fables. These are tales that are timeless, and the morals as well remain timeless. I think that anybody can relate to the figures in this piece because they are they're different kinds of general people and animals, but they definitely drive the lessons home. Next is Parsley, a casual work that is good to read after something heavy. And after reading heavy works, I've turned to comic books before to just chill and just consume something that's light and engaging. Some of these comic books that I enjoyed were Harley Quinn, Volume 1, Hot in the City, and The Amazing Spider-Man, the Parker Luck. But I do own a few more, and sometimes it's nice to read comics that feature some of your favorite superheroes. I personally like Batman and Spider-Man. Harley Quinn is more of an anti-hero, while she is a direct villain to Batman. But she plays a role in her series that makes her more of an anti-hero than as a villain. Next is Oregano, an important aspect of a great work. And for that, I went with The Accurate World Building and Character Development in Boy's Life by Robert McCammon. And what really stuck out to me is that in most works, you introduce your characters, you then introduce your conflict, and the conflict generally doesn't get resolved until the end. But in life, you're always coming across conflicts and problems and hurdles. Some of them are going to be addressed quicker than others, and in this book, that demonstrates just that. Not everything is necessarily addressed at the very end. This is structured just like one's life is. Not to mention that there are supernatural aspects that can be tied into reality in the way that these are things that can actually happen. Just so much about this book is brilliant, and I think that I wish more people wrote like Robert McCammon, where they broke away from tradition in order to do things that were more reasonable and more original. Next is Rosemary, a work that shows infidelity to a cause, be it good or bad. And for that, I went with a short story that I read in the Gettysburg Review called Only Be Good Things by Jackson Saul. And it has to do with a central character who was raised as a Satmar Hasidic Jewish person and does not like the restrictive, separatist way of living and decides to leave the religion. but does so with a great deal of struggle and hardship, having a long uphill battle in order to get back onto his feet, but leaves the wife behind that he was forced to, and at the same time, once you left, you could not go back. So it's an exploration of conflict within something so restrictive, and it really expanded my knowledge as far as Hasidism is concerned. Next is Sage, a writer who is better with words than storytelling, because Sage plays more of a role as a part of the supporting members of the herb garden rather than the star of the herb garden and anything pertaining to a dish that requires its presence. For that, I'm going with William Shakespeare. To me, William Shakespeare, his merit is built on the fact that he is an excellent writer. That's why I personally prefer his sonnets to anything, because his sonnets display how wonderful his writing is. But as far as his stories are concerned, all of them are borrowed. None of his ideas are original, but the way that he incorporates his writing and how poetic and lyrical it is what really solidified his legacy in literature. Probably the most spoken about literary figure and studied figure. Next is Time, a brave work. And for that, I went with Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut, because Harrison Bergeron really explores a dystopian future where the establishment controls all, including one's ability to think, because you cannot, you do as you're told. You're basically in a robotic zombie state. You're not supposed to feel, and if you try to break away from this, the establishment is just going to come in and wreak havoc and reclaim what they feel is theirs. And it's very absurd and very outlandish and just wild, but the underlying message is really haunting, and it does spark emotions of fury to that kind of society. Next one is Peppermint, a work that was challenging but rewarding to read. And for that, I went with Measure for Measure by William Shakespeare, and I did so on the basis that, to me, Shakespeare's plays are not necessarily the easiest things to... It's not necessarily as easy to grasp. I think I've gotten much better with it with time. But here's Measure for Measure here. Measure for Measure was one of the easier ones to understand, but it's not as common, so you cannot really do as much research. There's a lot of commentary as far as the main plays are concerned. Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Macbeth. Measure for Measure is not as common and recognizable, so being able to read it, understand it, enjoy it, and especially get a lot out of it was very rewarding in my mind. Next is Spearmint, an accessible gateway with reading classics. And I think that this really, when I was looking to immerse myself in literature, this was what I referred to, and that is 75 Short Masterpieces. I got this from Barnes & Noble. I was starting to delve in to my major of English. This really allowed me to get a great sense of different writers from different areas across the globe, with a work that was short but stuck out in any which way. Some stuck out more than others, but a wide array of different writers, from Ray Bradbury to Guy de Maupassant to Shirley Jackson, which I did read Charles, which is the short story of hers that's in this collection. But I was just so... I think that I got a lot out of this, and I think that this is a great gateway to reading more literature and learning more about different writers and exploring who you want to read more from. Next is, what is your favorite herb? To me, it's a bit... It's an odd... That's one of the harder questions as far as food-related ones are concerned. But I would say I like the different herbs that you use in Italian dishes, like oregano and basil. I used to not want them to put parsley on my pasta, but the waiter told me when I was at Olive Garden that the reason they do that is to keep your breath fresh. So I'm more than happy for them to put parsley on it now. But as far as like gum or mints are concerned, I do like spearmint. Peppermint, I'm more like, I love those peppermint puffs, and I will eat pepper, like if it's a mint in chocolate. But a lot depends on what the herb is being utilized for. And finally, who do I nominate? I'm going to nominate 22 people for this book tag. I nominate James Holder, Steve Donahue, Michaela and Gretchen from Betwixt the Books, Dane from Dane Cobain, and Dane actually voted for the herb book tag when I put this up as a poll, and so I thought that I'd be really interested to see what he comes up with if he chooses to do this tag. And I know Michaela voted for the herb book tag at one point too. I nominate Kira from Kira Was a Diver, Kai from Chiron, who is the creator of the Kitchen Garden book tag, AM from AM Meixel, Kedivin from Kedivin Reads, Irion and Prometheus from Book Zealots, Kara from Wild Book Garden, Tori from Tori's Book Nook, Jim from Jim Reads Too Slow, Maddie and Amelia from Talking Over Tea, Maya from Bespectacled, Sophie from Redhead Reading, Annie from Woodland Bunny, Carly from Frog Lit, Garrett from Poetic Artifacts, Rachel from Rachel's Reading Nook, Juliana from Juliana Caro James, Maria from Strange Lucidity, and Allie from Allie McKenna. I want to thank you for tuning in to the Herb Book Tag. I hope you check out some more videos from our channel, and I hope and encourage you to check out the other foodie book tags. If you have yet to do any of them and wish to do so, I highly encourage you to do so. I find them to be timeless, and I'd be more than happy to come over and check out your response to any of the foodie book tags that you respond to. If you like what you see on this channel, please subscribe for more. And if you really like what you see, please support us on our Patreon, for the money that we make will allow us to provide you, the viewer, with even more great content. For now, and as always, I encourage you to keep reading.